Hi everybody, good morning. I think we'll get started now. Good morning, my name's Laura Gage and I'm Marketing and PR Manager at the North East Automotive Alliance. Thanks for joining us for what is the rescheduled Microsoft 365 webinar with Bowe. Sorry for any technical issues that was faced last week, but I'm sure these have now been resolved. So please enjoy the webinar, which will be particularly useful for many of us who are working remotely or continue to manage teams remotely. So please use this time to ask the professionals any questions you've got and really get to grips with maximising the functionality of Microsoft 365. So I'll not take up any more time and I'm going to hand over to Lorraine McGill, who is the Operations Director at Bowe, who will kick off today's session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks again for coming back to us for the what, as Laura explained, is the rescheduled Office 365 hints and tips from last week. There was a few glitches, unfortunately, but we managed to get those rectified. Unfortunately, we're rescheduled by then, so hopefully nothing will go wrong today. So like I said, I'm Lorraine McGill. I'm the Operations Director at Bowe Digital. We're an IT support company just on the outskirts of Newcastle. We've been around for just shy of 30 years, so lots of experience with Microsoft 365, which is kind of our most popular product at the minute for obvious reasons. So we wanted to bring this this presentation to you, the members, today. It's both for people that use Office 365 already and don't know all the functionality in it, or those that are considering it. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of this. You can ask questions. We'll be opening up the Q&A. It's a live webinar, so unfortunately you can't just chat. You do need to put your questions in the Q&A. We'll be answering them throughout, and we will be having another QA at the end. So thank you very much for joining us again, and again apologies about last week. So we'll speak to you at the end. Hope you enjoy it. I'm handing over to Laura Mellor now, who is the trainer that we work with for 365 training.
Hello everyone, just sharing my screen with you now. So okay, let's just run this. Okay, so welcome to the Microsoft 365 seminar. My name is Laura Mellor and I work for my own company, Laura Mellor Training and Consultancy. So I've been running my own training company for 20 years, and as Lorraine's been saying, most of my work recently has been actually Microsoft 365. Also, just to say, don't get confused, it used to be called Office 365. They've just changed the name of it, so it is still the same product. If you do want to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, email, and if you want a free Microsoft keyboard shortcut book, I do actually have that also available from my website. So if you're interested, you might want to take a screenshot of that or do a photograph of that. But I would love to have you on board. I put out loads and loads of useful hints and tips on all of the Microsoft software on my platforms on a regular basis. So basically, we're going to be doing today a Microsoft 365 overview. So this is not going into every single product in a huge amount of depth, but it's really so that you know what Microsoft 365 is all about, how to navigate around the main screen, and what it can do for you. So we're going to be looking at the Microsoft 365 interface. We'll be talking about the online versus the local version of Office and how that works and what the differences are. We'll talk about storing files in OneDrive, and I'll mention about how you can share files or folders from in there as well. And also version control, because that's another key thing that OneDrive is pretty good at. And then we'll have a look at a little bit on Microsoft Teams. So going. Is my screen still shared? Is my screen still shared, folks? It looks to me like it's come off sharing again. Wait a minute, let me reshare. Right, reshare it. Okay, fine. Okay, let me pop in here. Right, I hope that is okay. Yes, I've got the big red board around it now. Okay, so it was sharing doing the presentation, and then it looked like it dropped out again. So, but we're fine now. So, okay, so this is basically Office 365. So Office 365 or Microsoft 365, as you can see, it still says Office 365 here on mine, but they've rebranded it, is basically an online platform. So it means that you can access your applications anywhere, you can access your files anywhere, and on a number of different devices. So on your computer, on your phone, on a tablet. So literally you can go anywhere, log on to your account, and this is what you get. Okay, so this is the main screen you get when you go into Microsoft 365. And the first thing you get is a whole load of options for your apps. So some of those you'll look at and you'll go, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the Word and the Excel and the PowerPoint. But there's a whole load of apps in here that a lot of people just don't realise exist and can be really, really useful for you and your business. So for example, we've got OneDrive, which is used for file storage, normally for individuals, but can be shared. We've got SharePoint that sits in the background and stores your information that is in Teams. Okay, Teams is a collaborative workspace. A lot of people think it's for sharing files. It does that. It does meetings. This is what we're using today. But it also does so much more. You can share information, you can share files, you can have conversations backwards and forwards. So that's your Teams. So this is a really, really popular bit of the software at the moment. I'm not going to go through every single application, but for your information, Yammer is used by some companies as well. So Yammer is like social media for business, so a bit like Facebook for business. So some companies are using it for more of their non-business communication. So information about maybe clubs they have associated with their business, or maybe information about things that are going on in their business as a whole, but are not as business related. So you've got that one. And again, you might have different options here depending on what you've signed up to for your licensing, because there's different licenses as well. Another really useful one here is forms. So if you're ever creating forms for people to fill in online, really, really handy little tool, that one. You've also got Stream. So Stream is like YouTube for business. So if you're wanting to share business videos, you might want to use Stream to share them on there. And then you've got All Apps, which gives you a huge range more. Okay, so there's absolutely stacks of them. Other ones that often people find useful, you've got Planner, which is a project planning tool. You've also got Sway, which is a bit like PowerPoint, so it's a presentation tool. So that one can be really handy as well. But yeah, and these vary. So Office 365 or Microsoft 365 does update on a monthly basis. So sometimes you will find there will be new things in here, and sometimes you will find things are renamed, etc. So it is an ongoing process. Okay. So back to the main screen. So the main screen, as I said, we've got here. So this is what you see when you first go in. So this is like your overview of Office 365. This option at the top, Install Office, you will get with most of the packages that you have for Office 365. It allows you to install a full version of the Office software. So these Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc., they are not full versions of the software. Okay, they are enough for most people to do most things that they do most of the time. But if you were using it with a vengeance, you really do need to have the full version downloaded. But say, for example, your computer breaks, something goes wrong with it, you can get another computer, log into your Office 365 account, and you've got these straight away. Okay, can be accessed, as I said, from anywhere. Further down the screen, we've got this section here. These are recently used files in effect. We then got a list of OneDrive files that have been recently used. And below that, we've got OneDrive folders that have been recently used. And this bit on the right hand side, the SharePoint, is actually related to Microsoft Teams. OK, so from this main screen, we can actually access our applications and our recently used files. OK. The online versus the offline versions of the software, if you haven't ever seen any of these online versions, if I just go in here, and so this is Microsoft Word, and I do a blank version. Again, I'm not going to go through everything to do with the software, but this is just really to give you an idea of the key differences. So you will notice that if we go to File, there is no option of saving. OK, so this is the first key difference. And that's because when you're online, it saves straight away. So literally, you go into it, it saves, that's it done. So it's saving all the time, so that you are never ever going to lose a huge amount of work. So it says up here it's saved at the top, and you can see what the file name is, and that can be changed, and you can see where it's saving to. So this is saving in our OneDrive. So this is my folder, documents in my OneDrive, but we could navigate to somewhere different if we wanted. OK, I'm not going to do that. Also up here, this is really handy as well. It's something called version history. So I type some information in, and I'm going to leave it for a little while. And then I'm going to type a little bit more information in. And as I said, it's saving all the time. Doesn't matter what I'm typing in here. So you would have noticed it says saving, and then it's saved. So if I go in here now and look at version history, I'm hoping I left enough time between it. OK, so what I've now got here is two different versions of the actual document. So I could go back to this version, which had nothing in it, or I can go back to this version, which has got all my text in it. OK, so over a period of time, you will get more and more versions saved. So if something goes wrong, you can always go back to an earlier point in time, and multiple earlier points in time. So it's much more flexible than it would have been before. So if I go back to my document, I'm back to where I was. OK, and that's one of the things that we can get away with because it's saving all the time. A lot of people get worried that, you know, they're going to make changes to their document and then they're not going to want to keep those changes, and then they can't get back to an earlier point. So previously, what you would have done is you would have saved the file, made your changes, closed it, and not saved your changes to get back to an earlier point. Here we now go up to here and we go to the version history, and we choose which earlier point in time we want to go back to. OK, so it's a lot more flexible. OK. Another thing you'll find about the online version is we can actually share. OK, I'm going to show you the sharing actually when we go into OneDrive, but it's the same option in here. So the idea is we can share this file with other people if we want to. OK. Below that, you'll find you get your ribbon, and on your ribbon there are less options than you would normally have in the full version, and some of the tabs, so these are the tabs on the ribbon, some of those are missing. So there's normally one for mailings, which is all to do with mail merge. That one isn't there at all, so you'd have to use the main option. So if I go through some of these tabs, there's a lot less options than there would normally be. Some tabs a lot less than others. Okay, so to do your basic stuff, absolutely fine. But if you ever find that you're partway through doing something and then suddenly you realise that you want to use all the extra options, what we can always do is open in desktop app. And what that would do is it would go to the main full version of Microsoft Word. Okay, so it says we're opening, so we're opening Word. So this is opening now the full version of Microsoft Word. And I don't think that's shared with you because I was sharing the actual screen, but that would have opened the whole version. So I'm just going to close that down and I'm going to come back in. Okay. Right. So I've just closed that down. That is basically our application. So whether I go into Microsoft Word or whether I go into Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint, they are all very, very similar with those options. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in to my main screen again. Okay, so we should find that when we're in this main screen, we should find that our file that we worked on a minute ago will be listed in here in our recommended. It does sometimes, however, take a little bit of time to update. So if you suddenly think, oh, you know, I've been working on that file, it's gone and I don't know where it is, don't panic. OK, it does just take a little bit of time sometimes to update in here. But what we've now got, if I look at the recently used files down here, it has shown up in here. So if I want to go back into that document at any time, I can literally click on it. And I'm going back into that document. It should go back into that document. Don't you just love it when you do things and it doesn't work? That should have just opened it straight back up. OK, normally, let's click on there. Maybe I clicked on slightly the wrong place. There we go. So it should open it straight back up. What I did was I actually clicked on the link, which took me into the OneDrive location. OK. So back on our main Office 365 screen. OK. If you've ever seen these three little lines on Office 365 and wondered what they are, that is a document that has recently been created or recently been uploaded. So if you see those, it's just a recent document. That's all it's telling you. So eventually, after a few days, those little lines will disappear. OK. We can also pin files. So if there are files we want to use regularly, we can pin them here. So there's a little pin symbol that you will see in things like Word and Excel. So you can pin things and unpin them. I'm not going to unpin these because these are ones I actually find useful. And also I talked about sharing, so any files that are shared with me would be sitting here as well. So I've got a couple here that people have shared with me over the last period of time. So these ones I can access that people have shared. OK, so that's how sort of your main part of your screen in Office 365 actually works. OK, any questions so far? I'm just going to come back, just have a quick look at the Q&A, just see if any questions have come up. I've got the Q&A which is saying start Q&A on here, folks, so I've got no questions on there, so I'm assuming no questions have come up so far. OK, right, so I'm going into a couple of the applications in a little bit more detail. As I said, OneDrive is a really key one to get to grips to if you're using Office 365 for the first time. And you'll find when you go in here, initially there would be nothing in here because this is where we're storing our files. And then you can either upload files into here or create them in Word and save them in here. So it's just like your usual file storage. OK, but this is generally, as I said, more personal to you. So it would be like your old documents that most people would have had in the older systems. OK, so I've got in here a whole load of folders. I'm just going to go into Docs, which is a folder I've got, and I'm going to go into a folder I created specifically for today called Bowe Digital. Okay, so what I've done, I've put a whole load of files in here that we can just see, we can work with, we can do whatever we want with them. Okay, so we've got up here at the top a number of options. So the first option, new, we can create new folders. So these are all folders that have already been created, but we can also from within OneDrive use the online version of the software to create a Word document, an Excel workbook, a PowerPoint presentation, a OneNote notebook or a form. Okay, I didn't mention the OneNote notebook. If you haven't come across Notebook before or OneNote, it's like an electronic notebook. It's a really cool tool, so it's worth having a look at that one if you haven't come across it. You can put in things like links, you can put in pictures, you can put in files, you can put in text, you can put in to-do lists, you can search it, so it's searchable, which obviously a paper notebook isn't. So if you're interested in an online notebook, have a little look at this one. It's a really nice little tool. Okay, so I'm not going to create anything else today. These are ones that have been created earlier. The next icon, upload, this allows me to upload files or folders that I've got stored somewhere else. So things that are currently not stored in my OneDrive. Okay, so initially when you set up Office 365, what you will find is you might be asked to do this by your IT department, or you might actually have this done for you. So they might do all the initial setup. But this is where we can bring in our files or folders. So when I initially set this up, I brought in all my data, which was stored on my computer. I brought it all into OneDrive. Okay. It will take a while if you're uploading everything in. But what it does is all the time it's connected to the internet, it's going to upload. So you do need internet connection to get into here. And every time you come off of the internet, it stops uploading. And when you reconnect, it just restarts loading up again. So it sort of restarts where it's stopped from. OK, we've also got the option here of share. So if I go into this folder called Excel exercises and say I wanted to share this file with somebody, so I could do it from here. OK, so actually this has now moved around because I've now selected a file, but it's exactly the same option. Or I can do it from these three dots at the end. I've got share in here. OK, and you will find in Office 365 or Microsoft 365 that there are actually multiple ways to do a lot of things, particularly in things like OneDrive and Teams. So if you see the same option again, don't think that it's something different. If it's got the same sort of name, it probably does the same thing. So this sharing is really helpful. So if I go into share, OK, so we've got several options. Anyone with the link can edit. So literally, I can pop an email address in here that will send an email to that person, and then they can actually click on that link. So it's like a link to a website effectively, and then they can access this file or folder. But you've also got other options. So we can either say here, people in my company only with the link can access it. So if that gets into the wrong hands and somebody outside of my company tries to use the link, they won't be able to use it. This one here, people with existing access. So if somebody said, I've lost my link. I've lost my link to the folders. You could say people with existing access, just let them know, again, where my data is. Or you can be very specific. So you can literally say, I want just this person and this person alone. OK, so if I go to the one, anyone with the link, and the reason I'm going to that one is just there's more options down at the bottom to explain to you. So anyone with the link, we could allow editing or not. So people could be able to come in and make changes to the files, or if that isn't ticked, they can come in and see the files, but they can't change anything. You can also set an expiration date. So the idea of that is you might want to share the file with somebody for the next week, or you might want to say to them, right, I am sharing this with you. You need to now take a copy of those files because the link is only going to be valid for 24 hours. OK, so you don't have to keep it being open, and you can set a password if you want. OK, so if I said anyone with the link and I then clicked on apply, it would then ask me for the email address. OK, again, I'm not going to do this today because I'm not going to get a response back, but I would put the email address in of the person and that would email them with a link to actually get to this once I clicked on send. And you could put a message, click on the link below to access the file or the folder that I have shared with you. OK, so that's how sharing works. OK, if I just go up to a previous folder here, you will see if I go up another level, I've actually got some folders here that are shared. So if it says private, that is for my use only. If it says shared, then that means that other people can access that. OK, so for example, I've got one of my clients. When we're doing team meetings, I have to record the team meeting. So those files are quite big. So what I've done is I've actually created a shared folder and I put the videos into a shared folder and they have now got access to that. So every time I run a course for them, I pop the video in there and they know they've always got access to the latest information. OK. So that is how that one works. So I'm just going to go back into the Bowe Digital folder. OK. You've also got an option here of sync. OK. Now what sync does is it syncs your folder that you're viewing in here, or your files and folders you're viewing in here, to your desktop. OK, so one of the big issues that a lot of people have when they are using Microsoft 365 is they're worried that if they have no internet connection, then they won't be able to access the files, but you can. OK, so when you first go into OneDrive, this sync button allows you to sync them to the desktop. So literally, I have got a copy of all of my files and folders that I've got on my OneDrive. I have got them also available on my desktop. So it doesn't matter whether I have internet or connection or not, I will still be able to access them, just like you would do in the normal way. OK. If you're working on those files on your desktop and you don't have internet connection, it won't update the OneDrive, the online version, until you connect. And as soon as you connect, it will start resyncing. OK, unless you have that is a manual sync. Normally it will just do it automatically. OK. You might see a little cloud at the bottom right hand corner of your screen. So just below this window, there's what we call notifications on the bottom right hand corner. If you ever see a cloud in there, that is telling you the status of your syncing, and you can hover over it and it will tell you whether the syncing is up to date. If it has little arrows in it, it's still currently trying to sync. And if for any reason that breaks, occasionally you might find the link breaks, very, very rarely. But if you ever see that, it has a little red cross in it, so you can actually see that the sync is not happening and you'll get a message in there. OK, so you can always try and do a resync. OK, but those are really the main things that you would do. Otherwise, it's very, very similar to working with your normal filing structure. So you can do things like you can copy and move things. So you can copy it to another location, you can rename things. Managing access, that's all to do with the permissions that we've talked about, where you start sharing. You can copy a link to the folder or the file, so you could actually email that. So you could literally copy the link and pop that in an email, so then people can get to that location. So that's literally a one-off. So there's loads of bits and pieces you can do, but there's nothing really too tricky. I said to you it updates all the time. This is an option that has only just come in. Okay, it's to do with docking files in and out. So if any of you use things like document management systems, where you can actually take a file and you can take it out for your own use only, and then you put it back, that's what the request files is all about. You may not have that yet. It depends whether it's updated or not. Okay. Other things you have on the left hand side, I'm currently in my files. I've also got recently used files and folders in here as well. Okay, and the other option I've got is shared. That's the other really useful one. So shared is the files that are either shared with me, files or folders shared with me, or at the top we have shared by me. So those are things that I have shared with other people. Shared with me is the ones that people have shared with me. Okay, the other bit on the right hand side, sorry, on the left hand side here is what we call shared libraries. This is to do with Teams. So when we go briefly into Teams, these are all your team sites. Okay, so these you can access also from in here. Okay. So don't know whether there's been any questions on anything to do with OneDrive. I'm just going to go back and have a quick look at the Q&A. Q&A. If you're adding any, right, okay, so let's see what questions I've got. If you're adding the email address of the person showing it, who does it speak to? Okay, so David's answered that one. Okay, I don't know whether there's any other ones directly. Thank you, David, for answering those. Okay, lovely. So I don't think there's any specific questions there that David hasn't already answered. Okay, right. So if we go back into Microsoft 365, I'm going to go back into our main Microsoft home screen. There is a huge amount of talk at the moment about Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has been around for a little while now, but it's really come to the forefront over the last probably 3-4 months, obviously given the situation we're in at the moment. But this is a collaborative tool. Okay, so before Microsoft Teams came along, a lot of collaboration would have been done through shared files using network drives, which would have been set up by IT. Somebody saying something there? No? Okay. But also, as well as shared files with network drives, also some companies were using SharePoint. Okay, so SharePoint is still there, as we saw with Microsoft 365, but a lot of the users of Microsoft 365 actually see it in a more user-friendly way now, which is using Microsoft Teams. So Teams is a user-friendly front end. But as I said, it does so much more than just the idea of sharing files. So this is your Teams screen when you go in here. So I'm on Teams on the left hand side, and this is the main thing I'm going to show you. So these are the teams that I have got set up at the moment. Okay, so this is a team called Alpheus Marketing Team. Okay, and within the team we have what are called channels. Okay, so in here there is just one channel called General, and that will be created by default when a team is created. Okay, so team is your high level, channels are the next level down. Okay, So again, this is an option you may or may not have access to, because a lot of this can be locked down in the background. So a lot of companies will restrict what you can and can't do and the procedures to do certain things. But this is what we would do if we have access to be able to create a team. So we go to create a team. I'm just going to do create a team, which is a basic one. And you can either create it from scratch or from an existing SharePoint group or a team that's already been created. So if you've got something similar already set up, you would start from there. If we do one from scratch, okay, so there are 3 types of teams. Again, you might not have all these options available. Okay, so private teams are normally what I talk about when I talk about teams. So a team would only have certain people who can work in that team. Okay, so it's not everyone can go in. Public is for anyone in the organisation can ask to join that team. And when I talked about Yammer earlier, which was like your social media for businesses, some companies are using public teams instead. So that's where their communication, which is less business orientated, might be. So things like maybe a team for, I don't know, a charity event that you're doing. There could be a team set up there and anyone could join it if they wanted to be part of that charity event, for example. And then organisation wide, that gives you a platform to be able to communicate with your company as a whole. If I just do a private one today, okay, so if I call it NEAA for today, we could put in a description. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but it is useful if you've got lots of teams, and we would create. And I love the Americanisms in here, so nice work. And then the idea is we start adding people to that team. I'm just going to add one person. Okay, so this is come in as a guest. So depending on your setup will depend on whether those people can only be internal to your company, which is what is normally the way it works, or whether you can actually also allow external people to be in that team. Okay, so that is something, again, your company would actually set up. Okay, so if I add, I could then start adding a second one. Okay, notice this person is a guest. This person is a guest because they are external to my company. Okay, but otherwise, I am an owner. So the person who sets up the team is an owner and can do everything with the team. Other people from the company who get added are members, and they can't do as much as owners, but they can do more than guests. And again, this is something, the level of what they can do within the team will be dependent on how it's set up in the company. Okay, so if I just close that, so there we go, there's our NEAA team. And there's our general channel. The thing to watch out for a lot with Office 365 is the dots that you see at the end of these things, because these give you your options. So you've got your 3 dots at the end, so we can hide the team, in which case it sits in hidden items and you could easily unhide it. It's just useful if you have lots of them. We can manage them, we can add channels, we can add more members, we can choose to leave a team. We can edit the team, we can create a link, so we could send a link to somebody else. And there's also tags. This again is a relatively new option. So probably most of you have come across tags in social media where you can do an @ symbol and tag somebody in so they get notified about a particular message. This one allows you to create your own customized groups of people that you can tag in. So you could actually put in a tag for selected people within the team who are doing a specific job. Okay, and delete the team, that can only be done by the owner. Okay, but if I just look at adding another channel, okay, so I could call this, so say within our team, we had a sub team that are dealing with a project called Project A. Okay. The privacy by default is standard, which means it's available to everyone in the team. So it might be we want a channel where all the communication to do with project A is in that channel. However, we could decide to make it private, that only those people who are working on project A see it. Okay, so if it's standard, then the idea is it's accessible to everyone in the team, but it sort of subdivides your information out into separate areas. Private means it's only for those people. So if I do a private one, okay, again, we would normally add people into the channel. I'm not going to worry too much about that for today, because this is a quick overview, but that is a private channel because it's got a little lock icon on it, so that only the people who are in the Project A channel can actually work and see what's in Project A. If I go back to general, however, so this was the one that was available to all our people. And I said that it's far more than just a location to be able to store files. So files is the file location. Okay. This bit here, the reason it's saying that is because it's literally just been set up. So normally you would be able to actually pop files in there. So if we left this for a couple of minutes, it would update. But posts, this is where you can have a conversation purely with the people who have got access to that channel. So you can literally go down to the bottom, start a new conversation. Welcome to the team. Okay, and then other people in the team can reply. So I'm going to reply as if I'm another person. So normally there would be other people replying. So they could go, okay, so this is so much better than communicating using emails for the actual people in this team. So think about if you're using emails. Somebody emails to the members of the team. Some people reply. Some people reply to all. You might be asking them a question. Somebody might say, yes, I can do that job, and somebody else replies and says, I can do that job, but neither know the other one has yet replied. So now you've got two people who've offered to do a job that you've asked about, and then you've got to get back to one of them and go, well, actually, so-and-so's already doing it. Here we are seeing a dynamic conversation where everyone sees every thread. So you don't have that sort of issue. So you don't have your inbox being clogged up with loads of reply to all emails. It's all in one place. And if you use this effectively, you will find only external emails will generally be done through Outlook. A lot of your other communication will be done through Teams. And it does take a little bit of getting used to because it is a different way of communicating. But it works really, really well once you actually get on board with it. Just want to show you these things. These are things that even if you started using these conversations, you might not have come across. There's this little A with a little paintbrush on, which it looks like it's just formatting, but it does a bit more than that. OK, so it allows us now to have a subject. So this means any of the messages we put in here are going to stand out a bit more. So you could say today's meeting, and we could have some information in there. We agreed to work together on this. OK. Notice everyone can reply, or you can get it that only certain people can reply. And this can be posted in multiple places at the same time. It used to be you could only post it in one. But if I just click on the little arrow here to send, do you see that stands out a little bit more? Or if you want something that stands out even more than that, we've got the little A with the paintbrush. And where it says new conversation, we can change that to an announcement. Now this is going to stand out. OK, so welcome Bob to the team. Okay, you can even add a picture on here if you want, and then we can add our subheadings. OK, so Bob is in accounts. He will be involved with etc. OK, so if things are starting to get lost because you've got so many of these conversations going on, by actually putting a bit of variety in, it can really help. This is also where we can tag, so @mention somebody. So I can mention an individual, I can mention a channel, or I can mention a team. So if I wanted to make sure that everyone in the general channel gets this as what we call a notification, so this would come up in the activity up on this left-hand side, I could put in, oops, if I spell it right, general. OK, so now that would tag in anyone in that channel. So please be aware of change to project spec. OK, so tagging is a really useful thing when you've got these messages. Other things you can do, you can add file attachments. And if you ever add a file attachment here, it automatically will show up on the files. So if I add a file attachment, OK, so this is still setting up and that's why I can't do it. Let's have another go. There we go, it's come up now. So as I said, it does take a little while. So if I just go to OneDrive, so I could store all my information related to this in here. If I go to, oh, it doesn't matter what I go to, let's go here. And let's put in that one, upload a copy. OK, so it's uploading that picture file. OK, again, it might take a little while, but rather than me having to find where that picture is within my comments here, it should show up on files. There you go. OK, and you can see now the files is available. OK, so the post is a really useful place to communicate with people. OK, you can also, and I'm not going to show you these, have a play around with these in your own time, but you can add emojis, you can add GIFs, and you can add stickers unless they are disabled. OK. Also notice these symbols on the right, these also help things to stand out. That symbol indicates that's an announcement, and this indicates that there was a channel mentioned. So these also make it easier to see what is actually going on. And if it's a tag for an individual, it shows a little @ symbol there. OK, so this should be taking over from the communication that you would normally be doing with your team members via email. OK. The files, this is very similar to what we actually saw for the OneDrive, but it is now related to anyone who is in the team. So automatically people within that team can see it. OK, so it's a slightly different way of working. OneDrive is more for individuals. Teams is more for that group of people. OK, so again, I could create a new, let's do an Excel one. I'm going to call it test. And it should go into the online version. So this again is the online version of the software, and we could now start creating an Excel spreadsheet. So we are editing so we can make any changes, but some of the logins that we were talking about earlier, you might find you can only view. Okay, so I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail. It's very, very similar with what we talked about, but notice you don't have a share because it's designed that it's already shared with the people in your team. Okay, so back to the teams. Wiki is interesting. Okay, so if you've got key information that you want to actually have accessible to people in the team, you could add it into here, and it's always available off this wiki button at the top. So you could call it NEAA info, and you could put in a section name, so it could be team roles, for example, and then we could have details about Bob accountant and all the details about Bob and so on. And then we can add new sections, so we could have a section here which was about current projects and so on. So rather than you having a file that people would need to hunt out from here, you could have all your key information about your team that you want them to be able to quickly access directly from this one place. Okay, it is entirely up to you whether you use it or not. Some people just put it in information in a file that people access, but it does mean it's really quick and easy to get to. And I'm saying it's for team information. It could be for anything that is useful for you to regularly share with that team. Okay, there's also a plus at the end here. Okay, now again, this is really, really interesting. We talked about things like OneNote and Planner and Stream. Okay, so OneNote is your electronic notebook, Planner is your project planner, and Stream is your video content. Okay. Each team can have their own ones of these things. Okay, so a team could have a OneNote notebook, and all their jottings and thoughts and web links and information and ideas could be actually just collated in that one place. Or you could have a project plan for the team. So who is working on what when? And that is available for the team, all of the team within the team site. And if you add any of these, what they do, if I add just OneNote, it's just going to create me a quick OneNote notebook. Okay, and we save that. It's going to create me an extra tab. So if I want to go into my notebook, which is currently empty, I would edit my notebook and I can start popping my stuff in here. Okay, so as I said, it is a collaborative workspace, not just for sharing files, but for sharing information and sharing ideas, sharing project plans. So it is far, far more than just literally for sharing files. The other one I'm just going to briefly mention is the calendar. Okay, so this is your personal calendar, but you can set up meetings in here. Okay, so this is how a Teams meeting is set up. I'm not going to do this because it will bomb me out of the meeting we're in, but there is a drop down and you've got schedule meeting. That is a standard meeting you would normally see if you've done any Teams meetings. But the other one we've got in here is a live event. This is what we're doing today. So this is designed to be run more as a webinar. Okay, so it's got a slightly different setup and we can do a bit more in the background. Okay, but that is what this is. This is your own personal calendar, and within your own personal calendar, you can then set up new meetings for whoever you want. Okay, so this side here is more your personal stuff. So files is actually all the places I can get my files. So it's not just got my Teams, it's also got my OneDrive. So this almost replaces going again to your Outlook, when you first go into the beginning of the day. A lot of people, if they get used to working with this, they actually come in here as their first port of call because they've got their calendar, they can access all their files, they've got their team site and team communication, and it's all in one place. Okay, so I can see we're beginning to run out of time. I'm just going to check whether there's any more questions come through. I think they all been. Oh, David, you are doing a sterling job here, sir. Okay, so I can see there's no other questions, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, and I'm going to pass you back over to Lorraine McGill at Bowe Digital. But I hope that was useful. I hope you've all picked up some hints and tips from that.
Thanks very much, Laura. That was really good. If anyone has got any questions, we've got a couple of minutes, so feel free to put any further ones in the live Q&A. Just a bit of background as to how we can assist with Office 365. Obviously, if you're moving to an existing system over to 365, we can migrate all your emails and documents into 365 and set up the hierarchy for the different individual members. We can also provide secure backups for 365, which a lot of people don't know about, which means you can back up each individual account, and it's fairly low in cost as well. But more than that, obviously we're there to support, we're there to answer any questions and talk you through the process and make sure that it's right for your business. There are different levels in Microsoft 365. There's a lower one which is email only, and there's further levels up from there. With obviously the one that you've just seen is the kind of the most popular version, which has got all of the Word, Excel and everything, and Teams, which is, like Lara said, is becoming more and more popular. So feel free to ask us any questions. You've got our details there. My email is lorraine.mcgill@bowe.co.uk, so feel free to drop any emails over if you want any further information. And if there's no further questions, we'll say thank you and wrap up for the day. Thanks once again to the NEAA, Laura and the team for letting us present this to yourselves. I hope you found this useful. It's been good. Thank you very much.